I don't want to say I told you so, but I did kind of tell you so. And I know me saying that there's a number of you that agree with me and have been saying the same thing. So we told people so. How about that? Many of us, we told people so, that indeed the Big Ten and the SEC would be looking to break away from the NCAA. This wasn't just an SEC thing, and then the Big Ten would stick around with the Big 12 and the ACC and stuff like that. Because as much as Jamie Pollard wants to come out here and say, oh, they're breaking the rules, the Big 12 and the ACC are breaking the rules just as much as the Big 10 and the SEC is. And one of the reasons that they have the biggest issue with that is because the Big Ten and the SEC can break the rules because they actually do make enough money to have revenue sharing and things like that. So, or to be able to go over and beyond the revenue sharing. So essentially what we have right here is the Big Ten and the SEC are making just far more money than everybody else. This is no secret. Both of them have payouts to their entire base of schools of over $1 billion. The SEC hit that mark, I think, back in February because they do their filing other taxes and stuff like that sooner. It was all in the same fiscal year. And then the Big Ten exceeded that with $1.37 billion. And even a team like Ohio State, because of making the playoffs and on top of some other things, winning the national championship, they made nearly $92 million just on their own from the fiscal year of 2024 and 2025. You see, this isn't just conference money anymore. What the Big 12 and the ACC are making, that's conference money. What Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, like Big Ten programs and SEC programs, although they're not making as much, what these programs are making is pro amount of money. And that's a big distinction here. And that's why the Big Ten and the SEC want to start, not just are making all the decisions when it comes to the postseason and stuff like that. But one athletic director, Jamie Pollard of Iowa State, is not happy about that. So this quote came out. You've probably already heard it, but let me just read it, for our podcast listeners, in case there's anybody else that hasn't heard it at this point. Cause I know, watching college football podcasts is probably not the biggest driver for everybody right now. I myself am listening to less than I typically do, just because there's not as much going on. But anyway, here's what Jamie Pollard said, athletic director for Iowa State. He said, I said it 3 years ago, let them break away. He's talking about the Big Ten and the SEC breaking away from the NCAA. He says, quote, I'd turn it around and say we should break away from them. Let them go. But they have to go in all their sports and see how fun it is to play baseball and softball and track when it's just the 34 of you. That's what I think we should do. But I'm one person, and that's probably a little bit more draconian, but that's how I feel about it. Let's quit talking about it, quit threatening, go do it. But if you're going to do it, you don't get to just do it in football and keep all the other sports with us. No, take them all, see how fun it is. I feel like Jamie Pollard's going to eat those words pretty bad. And I think Tony Petitti, his quote about we will wait and see that we just mentioned on the last segment, I think that was pretty telling that he is aware of what Jamie Pollard said. And the Big Ten is saying, all right, well, if you don't want us around, then yeah, we will go. We will go and we'll take it with us. Really what is happening here is the Big 12 does not understand their place in college football right now. And I get it. Like every Big 12 fan is going to come in here and say, no, we're in the FBS. We deserve it just as much as everybody else. Man, I love college football. If I was somebody that just covered college football, I'd be all with you, right? I'd be all with you, letting you know, yes. The Big 12, the ACC, they're in college football too, FBS and everything else. But we have to be honest about the situation here. We have to be honest with where things are. The NCAA is trying to cater to all of these different groups, and they really don't have the governing authority that they need to be able to do that. And if you get into these situations where, Cody Campbell gets his way to be able to, have equal revenue for pretty much every conference, and the government starts taking control of who these conferences sell to and everything else, then you're definitely going to see the Big Ten and the SEC break away in this situation. The spring meetings has been huge for the Big Ten. You already saw this wasn't even the spring meetings. This was back in March where the Big Ten came out and Petitti sent a formal letter to the NCAA basically demanding an immediate moratorium on a tampering investigations and talking about the revenue sharing and the cap and things like that as well, because it's obvious not everybody is following the cap, number one, and number two, why is there a cap there that some group of 6 schools can't meet, but the Big Ten schools and the SEC schools are meeting very easily? Well, the Big Ten's not just going to sit back and let LSU and Texas Tech and Miami and all these teams continue to go over it. So yeah, USC does go over it. So yeah, Oregon does go over it, and nobody should be mad at them for that because they're just trying to stay competitive. If anything, we should be mad at what the Big Ten was when they used to try to play by the rules and do everything the right way. Listen, I don't want anybody to break the rules, but at the end of the day, if everybody else is going to go out there and break the rules and the NCAA has no governing, power in all of this, I'm not saying go out there and break the rules because, again, I don't want everybody doing that. But at the same time, I understand where the Big Ten is coming from. And at some point, if the NCAA doesn't actually have the governing ability to be able to say no to that stuff, or the CSC, who the Tony Petitti also talked about, basically saying that it needs to change because they started it and it just continues to need to change. But that's the issue, is that you can try to change, but the CSC does not actually have the power unless people are signing those documents to say we will not sue the CSC if they come in here and tell us players cannot be ineligible and stuff like that. Everybody but Texas Tech can sign that. But guess what? If Texas Tech doesn't sign that, nobody's going to sign it because nobody's going to put themselves in that kind of situation. And that's one of the biggest issues you have with college football right now. You have a guy like Jamie Pollard, not saying he's an issue, but you have a guy like Jamie Pollard who's basically pointed out that the Big Ten and the SEC are different and they want to move on. Now, one of the things I do think is really interesting about this quote is he says, let's see how fun it is to play baseball, softball, and track when it's just the 34 of you. And to me, this is a huge talking point on the breakaway. If it does happen, is how would this go through? How would this happen? By the way, I didn't give proper credit here. This is an article on Yahoo Sports. Dan Wolken, senior writer there, he was the one that wrote this article. So if you want to get this quote and some other stuff, the article's title is "If the Big Ten and SEC want to break away from the NCAA, it's time for the rest of college athletics to call their bluff." So if you want to read that, go over there and read Dan Wolken's story on this. Anyway, that whole line there, see how fun it is to play baseball, softball, and track when it's just the 34 of you, seems to insinuate that the Big Ten and the SEC would have some kind of partnership to play each other, right? That's the hard part. Could they make that happen? Because if at a certain point you have too big of a partnership, you would have to have the antitrust. You would have to have a lot of these legal things to be able to say what is right and what's not right. And you can kind of go under the table and work together. But as we've seen multiple times, the Big Ten and the SEC don't really work together all that super well. And you honestly would probably get a similar scenario to what you've got recently with, teams, some of them following the rules and some of them not following the rules as well. Basically, what this comes down to is the Big Ten is seriously considering breaking away from the NCAA, just like the SEC is. The Big Ten is not nearly as vocal about it, but the Big Ten, based on what you've seen, and that's kind of how you have to judge this Big Ten stuff, the SEC will tell you. So follow what the SEC says, follow what the Big Ten does. Even with the Big Ten speaking out more, you have to follow more of what they do rather than what they say, because even with them speaking out more, they don't love to make the waves out there. But what the Big Ten has done, and the Big Ten did not appreciate what happened to Michigan with their whole, sign stealing thing and stuff like that. We can argue about that all day long, but the fact is the Big Ten did not appreciate the way that went down and how long it took and everything else. And then on top of that, the tampering stuff, they did not appreciate. The revenue sharing cap, they do not appreciate. All of these things, they do not appreciate, and they definitely don't appreciate what Cody Campbell is out there, proposing to the government and everything else to try and say, well, the Big 12 can just start mooching off the TV, revenue of the Big 10 and the SEC. They're not going to go for that. And if something like that happens, it will definitely be the two breaking away. But at least for now, if we don't get some kind of rules in place, if we don't get some kind of agreement put together, and I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon with the SCORE Act going away and the Cruz Cantwell thing. We'll have to talk about that again at some point here soon. But with all of that happening, it just does not look promising, and it looks like this breakaway with the Big Ten and the SEC could be happening honestly anytime now. And we'll see how that would affect basketball. We'll see how that affects all the other sports and everything else. But it is just a really interesting conversation right now, and we'll have to see how it goes down.